Peptides are drugs.
I've been doing peptides myself for the past 3 years, but today you really opened up my eyes. We can really reverse the age so fast now these days with all these implements.
People, if they inject it at night, they feel their skin is more radiant in the morning. COVID showed that their telomeres significantly shortened. But good news is that we can reverse the process.
If I was meditating for 2-3 hours every day, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling chill.
Yes, it improves sleep and definitely it reduces cortisol spikes. It's extremely important for slowing down aging.
Which peptides is best kept secret in anti-aging that almost nobody is talking about?
It's amazing.
If you wanted to add 10 years to your life, what steps would you take? Hello and welcome to Wellness is Life podcast. I'm your host Natalia Naila, and today's guest is someone pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of anti-aging, regenerative medicine, and human performance. Dr. Alexander Grinberg is a longevity physician and peptide specialist based in California with a background rooted in the functional and regenerative health. He helps high-performing individuals biohack their biology, optimize recovery, and dramatically slow the aging process. In this episode, we are diving deep into the world of peptides, what they are, how they work, and which ones actually move the needle when it comes to energy, skin, fat loss, and even reversing your biological age. Peptides are one of my favorite topics. I've been using them for the past 3 years to biohack my body, and I've seen incredible changes in my energy, longevity, and overall youthfulness. I can't wait to dive in, but before we begin, I want to thank today's sponsor, Aura Wellness. This is truly one of my favorite products. I use it every morning and night without skipping, and I've seen incredible results from glowing skin to fewer wrinkles. Their glutaril antioxidant spray delivers high-potency glutathione and works by supporting your mitochondria and powerhouses of your cells. That means your skin and your energy are being supported from the inside out. If you want to try it for yourself, see the link in my description and use my promo code Natalia15 for 15% off. Alexander, it's so lovely to have you here in my studio in Hollywood, all the way from San Francisco today. But I know you travel so much between Mexico and other countries around the world, practicing longevity, and I'm so happy that we met early this year. And you've definitely been teaching me many things, especially on peptides, which our conversation most is going to be all about peptides, which is the key for longevity and anti-aging. And now I can say you are my longevity doctor, which is really important to have someone can oversee, not only on the physician level, but also on optimizing level, all the way to what exosomes to do, what peptides to shoot, how to optimize peptides. I've been doing peptides myself for the past 3 years and learning from basically wild west, learning from bits of here, bits of there, and experimenting myself and learning from this doctor, from this biohacker, this longevity coach. But today, you really open up my eyes on how the peptides needs to be implemented carefully, dosages, also on different peptides that I had no idea I was doing them differently than you would suggest. And certain new peptides that you introduced in my world are changing how I feel, how my friends and my clients are feel now, which is I'm so grateful. And I really would like to start to ask you, where you from? And for listeners who don't know you, what do you do?
Good morning, Natalia, and thank you so much for inviting me for this talk. And it's my pleasure, honor, and privilege to help you optimizing your health and helping you with staying young and useful and extending your life and health span. And answering your question about my background, currently I'm practicing physician, practicing in California, in San Francisco, but I help patients both in the United States and internationally, working on optimization of their longevity protocols, helping people with a number of chronic conditions, health conditions that for which conventional medicine exhausts its limits and potential. My background is I was born and raised in former Soviet Union and came to United States about 34 years ago. In Soviet Union, I went through medical school, and during my years in medical school, specialized in developing scientific projects related to immunology and immune and endocrine, immunohormonal interfaces. After medical school, I went through internship, fellowship in immunology and pulmonology and allergology, and did a lot of scientific research there, and went through a PhD program in immunology there. At this time, during late 80s, I was lucky to participate in first clinical trials of late Professor Havinson thymus-derived peptides that we used to see how they affect different conditions ranging from cancer to newly emerged HIV infection to autoimmune conditions. And we did a lot of other interesting interventions. It was all Soviet Center of Immunology where we had access to a lot of testing, and we were able to customize and create assays fitting the exact specifics of our patients. And it was very interesting. And since then, I got fascinated with what peptides could do with their amazing effects and a good safety profile. At this time, we also worked a lot with developing plasmapheresis technology, IV blood laser irradiation using different wavelengths of lasers, and a lot of other technologies that become very popular in longevity world currently.
Yeah, this is fascinating. So you basically started in the original labs, experimenting with all the peptides and plasma exchange. Now, the plasma exchange became such a popular now in longevity space here in the United States, but it's coming all the way from Russia. You guys have been practicing then Bulgaria, and you even met Dr. Kiprov, which I've done plasma exchange with him for my mom. You said you met him in Bulgaria, and he visited you in Russia, which is so fascinating. That think about that. It's going back, the longevity in things you guys have been doing 40 years ago. And now it's only catching up in the modern world, and not even that. And that's why we're doing all these podcasts, to teach other people what's possible. We can really reverse the age so fast now these days with all these implements. So what did peptides first come into your world? Do you remember the first time you came across them in your work?
Mm-hmm. Peptides as a clinical tool came to my world around 1988, when we got an access to what was called Thymolol, Timaptin, T-activin, and we heard beautiful rumors how these peptides can help patients suffering from cancer. And then we started clinical trials on these peptides, checking the effects on redistribution on markers on immune cells, the clinical effects on various populations of patients, cancer patients, HIV patients, allergy patients, and different pulmonary diseases, as well as autoimmune conditions. And we were recording the effects of these peptides and completing corresponding laboratory testing, developing assays, see how these peptides affected activity of cytotoxic lymphocytes, of production of antibodies, phagocytosis, so many different effects.
Is that peptide still around?
These peptides are still around, and there are more of them, more of thymus-derived peptides. Back then, they were derived from animal tissues, using available back at this time methods of extraction. But with the years, most of them are reverse engineered and manufactured synthetically using pharmaceutical industry.
So for the listeners who don't know what peptides, this is a new world for them. How would you explain what they are and why they're so powerful for longevity?
So here I need to explain a little bit in depth. Probably everyone knows the word proteins and knows that we are the beings of proteins. It's all, everything in our body is consisted of proteins. And the proteins have building blocks of amino acids. amino acids molecules that when thousands of them are more combined, they create big molecule of protein. But when these amino acids get together for smaller chains, like from 1 to 50, technically they are under definition of peptides. So chains of amino acids ranging from 1, 2 to 50, technically in chemistry called peptides.
Interesting. And so how do they mate?
There are different ways to manufacture peptides, chemical synthesis or using bioreactors. They can there are two major ways to produce peptides, either by chemical synthesis or by the means of biotechnology.
And I know a lot of peptides are produced everywhere, from China, India, Turkey, and now we actually have labs here in the United States, pharmaceutical grades. What's your take on that? Which peptides do you prefer the best?
It depends, and of course, the best legal advice is to get peptides that are approved by FDA and available and come from known GMP level distributor, have all kinds of certifications. At the same time, we know that a lot of people use research grade peptides, and you're absolutely right. They come from everywhere, from abroad and from sources in the United States. And in this case, definitely I would recommend to do as good background check as possible, see if they are third-party tested, and get a deep dive into chemistry and see what's important about peptides, like the amount of TFA salts, trifluoroacetate salts, that used frequently in production of peptides and needs to be carefully removed from the final preparation of peptide, because the effect can be counterproductive for health and may affect cellular health. And other things like sterility of the peptide, presence of bacterial contamination, and purity of peptide, it should be higher than 98%. These basic things, we can talk more about this, but it's would be overwhelming chemistry-wise.
Yeah. Are they safe overall? Or like in 10 years, we'll learn that, wow, these peptides are not safe for our longevity and our health?
Safety is a very important issue, and for peptides, if they properly used and if proper peptides are used, they have much better safety profile than many other small molecular drugs. Why I'm saying drugs? Because definitely first safety rule for people is to realize that peptides are drugs, that they are extremely bioactive molecules, and they should be respected and approached as any other pharmaceutical product. Second thing is about long-term safety. When you talk about 10 years from now, obviously you and people think about genetic toxicity. So probably, if I understand you correctly, you mean if there is a long-term effects on genome and gene-altering effect.
Right.
Thank you. So for this purpose, the study were conducted, and peptides considered not to alter genes, not to cause genetic mutations, but they help genes to be expressed more actively. So they increase the level of expressions of genes. That's called epigenetical effect. So the difference between epigenetical and genetical effect is that peptides don't alter the genes, gene sequence, gene structure, but they trigger or induce high level of expression of certain genes, and probably for some genes they can reduce the level of expression that also used in different medical applications.
And when I talk to you, and I've learned a lot, that it's really important how to administer peptides and what dosages to make, and knowing it's not just by the book, like we're now in longevity space, we're like, oh, get Epitalon and do 10 days course at 10 units or 20 units for 10 days, now it's 20 days, now it's every 3 months. Before it was used to every 6 months for 10 days. And when I talk to you, you're like, wow, you actually administer peptide a different way. You do microdosing on a daily or every other day with other peptides. Can we talk about that? Which for me was a huge eye-opening. I was like, what? Was I doing it wrong? And you're like, no. Back in Russia, when you were studying peptides and doing peptides, that's originally how you did it. But now you like to do it differently.
Yes. Thank you so much for this question. It's extremely important. First, I want to help people to understand that there are inherent things related to peptides and the recommendations on the protocols people can see in the books. So if we think how peptides were studied, the clinical research on humans has been very limited. And it gradually gets better. When big pharma picks up peptides like semaglutide, tirzepatide, and turns them into blockbuster GLP-1 drugs known for everyone as Ozempic or Mounjaro. But in general, the peptides people see in longevity protocols in the books, they were studied by Professor Kavinson and his group 30, 40 years ago. And people should realize that biotech capacities and infrastructure back then and in Russia, in Soviet Union, and Eastern Europe were very limited. And the data they gathered reflected more like their observation of on clinical cases. And people should also realize that these groups, Professor Kavinson Institute of Gerontology was targeting aging population of communist leaders. And they needed immediate effects. The longevity for them was not like it is now for us. It's a marathon, it's constant uphill battle. But for them it was some immediate help. They needed 1 week or two when they had some short vacation between the important party assignments, and they had to feel better after 10 days. Otherwise, the doctor would not get funds for further research. So the protocols reflect this, because the short protocols like 5 or 10 days with very high dosages of Epitalon obviously reflect this. And also Epitalon has multiple effects, not only telomere elongation, but it also affects structures and rejuvenates endocrine system, entire hormonal system, as pineal gland that Epitalon originally derived from is kind of master switch of endocrine system, participates in circadian rhythms regulation and many other things, and maybe interface between immune system and endocrine system, between central nervous system and both hormonal system and immune system. It's extremely important organ that has huge populations of different receptors, and no one studied all these receptors seriously. And but to make the point and to be precise, we don't want to overwhelm receptors on the pineal gland by extremely high dosages, because again, many people know that there are negative feedback loops when people use certain hormone replacement. It can suppress their own hormones. And we don't know if it happens in pineal gland with Epitalon, but my careful approach is not to overwhelm receptors, when people get too much substance, it can downregulate receptors.
So what would your recommendation would be on Epitalon these days?
So for decades, in my experience, I was dosing Epitalon carefully, giving people small amounts like 500 microgram every other day, and putting it strategically among other peptides in the protocol, among mitochondrial peptides, among peptides used to reduce inflammation, to stimulate growth hormone production. Depending on special clinical needs, Epitalon actually finds very good applications in many protocols for different conditions, and definitely for rejuvenation. And people feel very good effect even with low amounts of Epitalon, even 250 microgram. People, if they inject it at night, they feel their skin is more radiant in the morning. They feel fresher, well rested, and obviously they have less stress or adrenergic response in the morning. That's very important, obviously. And possibly they have low cortisol level and less of cortisol spikes during the day after they inject Epitalon at night. So it's very interesting.
Interesting. Would you recommend staying on Epitalon for a longer period, or you would like pulse, like for 6 months, every other day, whatever the protocol is, or what would be the time of frequency?
In general, people who are really serious about longevity understand that longevity is a constant process and time, and modern human physiology moves in one direction with time, and we want to reverse it. That's why usually for people who are serious about longevity, I alternate protocols, because obviously you cannot combine 10 or 15 peptides in one protocol. And each protocol has some specific target, say reducing inflammation or helping people gain lean muscle mass. But among these peptides, I add Epitalon in small amounts, and it can be from 4 to 6 weeks, low dose Epitalon every other day, 250 or 500 microgram, depending on patient weight and response. With peptides, I have to add that it's more complex than standard pharmacology. It's not just pharmacokinetics or pharmacodynamics. It's this person's genome and how its genome responds to specific peptide. Actually, we did some essays that confirm this. For this reason, for the lack of profound genetic testing, how each gene expression gets modified by peptide, we rely on subjective reports. And if people feel well and better with low dose Epitalon among other peptides for 4-6 weeks, that's fine. And then maybe I repeat it in 2 months, and it can be 4 to 6 times during the year when I use Epitalon, or its extended form, N-acetyl Epitalon amidate.
Okay. Is it a different kind?
There was always a struggle to increase the half-life of peptides, because peptides have very short half-life, and that limited their attractiveness for big pharma, and that's why pharmacological studies direct them on extending the half-life of peptides. And obviously, when a peptide has longer half-life, its effect on gene expression may be increased. Again, it's subject for further investigation and research, but that's an assumption. So there are 2 different kinds of Epitalon, regular Epitalon and N-acetylamidate Epitalon, and people can frequently see N-acetylamidate modifications of C-lung, C-max, some other peptides. So this is additional molecule that added to peptide to make it last longer.
Interesting. And let's go back to telomeres. What telomeres, really quick, why they're important for longevity. And now we learned that Epitalon is actually lengthened the telomeres and brings the immune system up.
Thank you so much. Of course, talking about longevity, telomeres are a hot topic. And telomeres are caps at the ends of chromosomes. They consist of DNA, and it's more important what they do than to specific molecular biology of telomeres. So what they do, they shorten with each cell division. And reducing the length is associated with increased risks of poor self-reparation of DNA and accumulating mutations in DNA. And of course, many people realize that more mutations in DNA are more risk of all the conditions that eventually can be increased morbidity and mortality. All chronic conditions, cancers, autoimmune conditions, they all related to higher number of mutations in DNA. So that's called telomere attrition. And telomere attrition happens not only with cell divisions, but with attacks by viruses. COVID showed that even very healthy people doing very well, having healthy lifestyle, after COVID, viral assaults or insults, their telomeres significantly shorten. And some other things, exposure to too much sunlight, UV, just mental stress, they all shorten telomeres. And but good news is that we can reverse the process. That's wonderful news by many different things. Epitalon, one of good proven remedies that showed in research, elongating telomeres, and it's a very good effect.
Is there testings that we can do to test our telomeres? Because I know being in longevity, there's a couple of companies that I personally haven't tested myself, but I know other biohackers, they're like, oh, this one to test the telomeres. And then I hear, well, not really. They don't really show you that. What's your take on testing the telomeres? It's accurate, and do we need to do that?
Longevity and biohacking are tricky businesses, and we need to distinguish. Sometimes it's longevity, sometimes it's longevity. And biohacking, we need to hack biohacking to understand what is inside. For this reason, it's always good to have third-party company that audits the company that claims they do something, either checking stem cell division rate or telomere length. It's always a question how reliable it is, and so there is no particular answer now. There are a lot of companies doing so-called genetic testing, telomere length testing, without proper standardization and knowing what platform they use and how reliable it is. It's hard to say. That's why, if people have enough budget to do some tests and to do search and to see which higher tier company provides claims that they do telomere testing, how well it's substantiated. But at the same time, obviously people should feel if, sorry for simplification, but if you feel better after Epitalon, if skin gets better, if your athletic performance, other performances get better, obviously you're doing something right. So for the lack of 100% reliable testing in the molecular biology of aging, at least at the level of biohacker consumers, I would say it's extremely important to watch our subjective response to any intervention.
Yes, and doing the labs is really important. Like we talked about, even when you do certain interventions, retest every 3 or 6 months to see where your markers and how you upgraded yourself. I remember when I started my first peptide protocol, that was the peptide, Epitalon first. And I remember when I did the 10 days of higher dose, it wasn't that high, but it was higher dose to your practice. But I saw incredible results, like from other people saying, wow, did you do something for your face? Did you do something? And I saw the anti-aging effect on the face, on the wrinkles, just the whole energy even. So, and still it's my favorite. So let's talk about really quick, how important is labs?
Labs are extremely important. Once again, I would emphasize that peptides are as serious as any other medication and medical intervention, and no one would argue that any medical intervention requires good history and physical, ascertaining all health history and as much clinical data as possible. And labs are extremely important. The more labs we're able to get, starting from basic blood chemistry and blood cells count. And then, of course, I recommend people before starting peptides, particularly if they target growth hormone releasing peptides or related to growth hormone peptides and growth factors, exosomes, stem cells. Whole body MRI is a good idea because it can give people some information about cancer and potential for growth in their bodies, combining that with some tests that are available for early cancer detection, either from available clinical or some emerging and proven companies that provide early cancer detection. It's extremely important. And of course, all this testing for toxins, for heavy metals are very important.
And maybe vitamins, uploads.
Yes, all nutrients. And
nutrients.
It's good to combine plasma nutrients with intracellular nutrients that this testing is available now to see how well they get into the cells.
For full MRI, it's Prenuva is really good. And the one that you recommended me, which I'm doing it on Monday, the Clearly test to test your heart. It's one of the most incredible scans that you can do for your heart to see the smallest veins, which is the key, especially for women's longevity. As we know, women, they die much often from cardiovascular and faster and younger from not detecting the smaller veins. So thank you for recommending. I'm doing one on Monday. And going back to the growth hormone, which markers do we look for? Is IGF-1? What else?
And we're talking not about growth hormone injections, but about peptides that either growth hormone releasing peptides or stimulate the pituitary to produce growth hormone through growth hormone releasing. In addition to basic blood chemistry, we need to have good hormone profile to see any pre-existing hormonal imbalances. And this includes both insulin hormone level and IGF-1. And some people check their growth hormone levels as well. And it's important to realize that sometimes increasing levels of growth hormone, people predisposed to diabetes, having high blood sugar, can actually increase the insulin resistance. and as the growth hormone have an opposite to insulin effect and affect its ability to availability for the cell. So it's very important to check this. So basically it's HbA1c, so dilated hemoglobin is important.
And what's a normal hemoglobin that you're looking for, and which ones are pre-diabetic and diabetes?
So we always love for longevity to have it for HbA1c middle or low normal. So standard medical norms are up to 5.7, and 5.7 considered borderline of prediabetes, and over 6 considered diabetes. So definitely our goal is to keep it lower than 5.7, ideally 5.4, 5.5, and also have fasting glucose levels lowered, not higher than 90, because there are some data that with each unit after more than 90, it increases the risk of developing diabetes. So want to keep fasting glucose low as well.
Can we talk about tirzepatide? What's the difference between Ozempic? There's another one, Wegovy, tirzepatide. Now there's a new one. It's called the retatrutides. What are the differences between all of them? And why they're important for losing weight, anti-aging, and there's so much more.
The difference between all these three semaglutide, original peptide is semaglutide, and it's known under pharmaceutical name of Ozempic, and tirzepatide known under the name of Mounjaro, and a newer one, retatrutide, that I don't think has a pharmaceutical name yet. It's in phase 3 of clinical trial. All of them hit different number of receptors. So Ozempic focused on GLP-1, and tirzepatide already targets 2 receptors, and retatrutide targets 3 different receptors. And this accounts for different physiological mechanism of action. But what's interesting, there are responders and non-responders to each of them, and it depends on the genetic setup. So even Ozempic being active on one receptor can be amazing for some people who don't respond to tirzepatide well. Same for retatrutide. So it's genetic predisposition. So these GLP-1 molecules find their responders and non-responders, and this needs to be assessed by the dynamic of weight loss and by the profile of side effects. Some people tolerate Ozempic well. Some people have a lot of GI side effects. Same for tirzepatide and retatrutide. And there are a few more GLP-1s develop, and also they are part of larger group called incretins. They are peptides and molecules regulating feeling of satiation and hunger, and they can work through different physiological systems. GLP-1s work through glucagon-like receptors, and cagrilintide works through imitates of hormone amylin. And there are some other peptides that can affect some higher centers of hunger and satiation in hypothalamus and central nervous system.
Also, I know not everyone can administer GLP-1, especially people with the certain gene, but also the one
pancreatic issues.
Can we talk about that and hormone dysfunction as well?
Definitely. And it's very important, again, to approach everything related to peptides with experienced healthcare practitioners. And there are known contraindications to using GLP-1s, like history of thyroid cancer. With pancreas, it's a very interesting field. Pancreatic conditions, there is a broad range of pancreatic conditions ranging from different pancreatitis to some growths, benign malignant tumors, cysts, other conditions. And in some conditions, in certain forms of pancreatitis, losing weight is vital to reduce severity of pancreatitis. Other conditions, specific conditions, can be contraindication for the use of GLP-1s. So I think anyone that has health history of certain health conditions should consult appropriate physicians, like if we talk about GLP-1s. And pancreatic issues, it's endocrinologist and gastroenterologist. They should participate in the discussion to see specifics of
yeah, so it's really important not to just start and grab and start shooting yourself GLP, hoping to lose the weight. Go and check out if you have pancreatic. A lot of people don't even know. They're undiagnosed, and then they can do more harm than actually good.
Definitely. That's why whole body MRI is a good idea. It picks up small, few millimeters lesions in the pancreas, and it can be addressed.
So I know you are practicing from and operating from California. When it comes to peptides, do you think U.S. is leading in innovation, or other countries ahead in terms of ideology and availability?
That's a good question, and definitely a lot of research in biotech industry and in the academia is linked to peptides, because in peptide science, almost every month we see discovery of some newer peptides, because they're everywhere. People should understand they are like messages on their phone. Every cell and the intercellular and extracellular structure communicates with other structures through these messages sending peptides, and they can a wrong message translates into faulty production of some damaged or mutated protein or hormone, and it's very important. That's why peptides are everywhere. And definitely the US has a lot of academical institutions and big pharma labs and R&D. A lot of research and discovery on peptides happens in the United States, and we see emergence of many peptide-based medication in the US for rare diseases, for cancer, for rare gastrointestinal diseases, so that's great. And there are big institutions that are focused on peptide discovery and lead optimization for big pharma. And definitely, as we see that they became hot topics and blockbuster drugs in big pharma, like GLP-1, and for many conditions, GLP-2 and some other conditions, and cancer treatment all rely on peptides now. US definitely is leading in terms of pharmaceutical development. And for mass production, for research peptides, probably there are more companies for research peptides production in China and India.
And how careful you have to know how to get certain things from China or India, or for people who are in America, they should look straight into the American companies.
It's a complex question, and even some American companies, they may get supply from other countries. So it's a very complex question. But again, as everything, particularly such serious thing, that something that we inject in our bodies, we should spend time and effort to do as much research as possible and find out who supplies the peptides, because even some of them, if they produced abroad, they may be higher quality, and even big pharma uses research peptides from other countries. But again, there are hundreds companies in say China and India that manufacture peptides, and their quality may be very different. And it's a very complex question, but now there are companies that can test peptide for you. You can send peptide and they can check major characteristics of the peptide. First, is it the peptide that it claims on the label? Is it biologically active? Is it pure? Is it free of contaminants? And is it sterile? So all these things that they can check, and it's not easy and may cost money, but again, if people get peptides from obscure sources, probably it makes sense. But there are also compounding pharmacies that provide peptides. This is the best and legal way to get peptides. While some peptides were banned by FDA, there are still many peptides that are available through compounding pharmacy. And
I want to talk about the new peptide that you just introduced me to. It's a pharmaceutical one. It's called Methenkephalin. Do I pronounce it right?
Methenkephalin.
Methenkephalin.
It's just to make it clear, it's not produced by big pharma yet. It's not it's a synthetical one, but it's still a research peptide.
Okay, but you told me that you ordered from pharmacy, and we had to
It's
order
available
one.
in compounding pharmacies.
Yeah, so you had
yes.
to order that. You cannot just find in any websites or other things. Can we talk about why this peptide is so magical? I've been doing it for the last week, and only from few doses, I was like, wow. And you call me every other day, you check on me, see how I'm doing, and I'm like, Alexander, this is like, I feel like if I was meditating for 2-3 hours every day, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling chill. I'm not so, because I do have slight ADHD. So I'm like, once I get up, I'm like, oh my God. And it kind of stresses me out sometimes just from my own routine. And that brought me down. And just a little quick story, when 10 years ago, before my daughter was born, I was actually meditating for 2-3 hours every day because I was single, I had plenty of time. And so I know what it feels when you do meditate for 2-3 hours, how your body feels, how your conscience feels, how you perform. And I stopped doing that. I mean, I don't have time being a mom, a businesswoman, doing podcasts. I mean, if I have 10-15 minutes a day, that's all I get from my meditation. But that's not going to change much. And this particular peptide, please talk about this, is changing how I feel.
Thank you. It's a good question. Definitely, I love to talk about methenkephalin. So many people know the name of endorphins. Endorphins are our inner system inside our body. We are able to produce opioid-like molecules that fight pain, that calm us down, that provide many other effects, including helping to regenerate our cells, cell resilience, and even elongate our telomeres. Endorphins. But the problem is that with stress, with everything that you describe that happened to you for the last 10 years, you have less and less time to calm down, to take a deep breath, to meditate. All these activities increase our levels of endorphins. And then the less endorphins we have, the less receptors on the surface of cells we have to meet them. And sometimes a lack of endorphins actually triggers search for substances in people. People look for substance of abuse because they lack endorphins and they live in a state of chronic pain, either physical or mental, and they in search of something that can alleviate this pain. So methenkephalin helps us to grow more receptors for endorphins on the surface on our cells. It makes the population of receptors to endorphins more dense, and it creates opioid-like effects without using opioids. Our own endorphins meet receptors, a more dense population of receptors on our cells, and affect our central nervous system, immune system, in the way that similar to long hours of meditation, of breathing exercises, something very healthy and very helpful if we can do it. And at the same time, we learn more and more about receptors to endorphins and their effects. As I mentioned, it's extremely important for slowing down aging. Years ago, back when I was in the former Soviet Union, we had a meeting with people from India. They were leading Ayurvedic doctors, and they had studied people who meditated, yogis, and they found that their prolonged life and rejuvenating effects were related to higher than normal, few times higher than average person levels of endorphins in the system of practitioners. But with methenkephalin, we're able to reproduce this effect, increasing the number of receptors. Even if we don't have a lot of endorphins, the action and effect is few times higher because we have more receptors to respond to them. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. Methenkephalin also studied for anti-cancer effects, for effects regulating immune system, for autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. Yes, it improves sleep, and definitely it reduces cortisol spikes.
I love it. And also my friend, she's been doing the same, and she's going through really hard time right now, one of the hardest time in her life. And I know, knowing her, she would be crying, she would be depressed, she would be just going crazy. Being on methenkephalin right now, she's chilled. I'm like, Oksana, how are you doing? She's like, well, life will show. She's like really chilled. I'm like, wow, this is so incredible. So thank you so much. And I know
You're
the
very
dosage is
welcome.
really important. Even for me, it's different than for hers. And then we had to switch from night to morning because we had these, we didn't sleep well. So you were like, so having a practitioner knows how to carefully advise these peptides are so important that we're going to be talking about on this podcast all the time. I've learned that myself. But also, if someone wants to safely start peptides, which peptides are generally safe for everyone doing it without practitioner?
Well, as a professional medical specialist, I have to say that nothing is safe without medical practitioner. We can, if we rephrase this question, we can compare safety of peptides if someone goes against this medical advice. So usually the peptide that more studied, like BPC-157, GHK basic or GHK copper peptide, and some thymus-derived peptides, more studied, used in compounding pharmacies and have good descriptions. Probably they are safer than others, but I'm again saying that they are safe because someone has underlying autoimmune condition can trigger flare-up of autoimmune condition even with some well-known thymus-derived peptide. Someone has some abnormalities in collagen production, elastin, or is prone to developing copper toxicity, or certain hepatic conditions may suffer from side effects of GHK copper peptide. And even BPC, some people has undiagnosed cancer, some growth, even BPC can be a problem. That's why I'm against the word safe no matter what.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Of course, everybody's asking these days about collagen, and now GHK copper is so popular. Everybody's just like, give me that, give me copper. And you told me it's better to do just GHK without copper. Explain.
To be correct, I said it's good to do GHK without copper and alternate it with short courses of GHK with copper, ideally.
Okay.
Because GHK copper requires a lot of discretion because copper can rapidly build up in the system and can become toxic, and it's people shouldn't wait till the nails turn blue or eye conjunctives turns bluish. It's already high level of copper. So usually as a baseline, I recommend GHK basic that can be pretty safely given for 4 to 6 weeks in appropriate amounts. And maybe alternating or adding GHK copper in low doses for 2-3 weeks.
After you finish the GHK?
Or along with it.
Oh, along
with
together?
it. But for GHK copper, I don't recommend using it more than 2-3 times a year.
Okay,
But
makes sense.
Regular GHK basic can be used more frequently and with much more safety.
And what GHK does for the body?
It affects genes and pathways involved in collagen and elastin production. It helps to produce healthy collagen, not a collagen that's responsible for fibrosis, and can even reduce fibrotic process and help to produce healthy collagen. And healthy collagen, elastin, it's not only for skin, hair, and nails. They are also parts of lining of blood vessels. That's extremely important. It's part of connective tissue, and connective tissue is everywhere. It connects everything. So it's good to have healthy structures in your connective system. And GHK has also some mild anti-inflammatory effects, and there are data that it can suppress certain cancers.
And what about BPC-157?
BPC-157 is body protective compound, originally derived from gastric lining cells that protect themselves from damage from hydrochloric acid in the gastric environment. So it helps cells to protect themselves, to regenerate, to have more resilience. It has effects on improving response to nitric oxide, significantly improving response to nitric oxide, some reducing inflammation, and It's considered cell repairing and cell regenerative peptide.
Yeah, especially when people have injuries, they go for BPC-157 with the TB 500,
Yes.
and they inject and they see incredible rejuvenation results. And I know the BPC-157 is also great for leaky gut, restructuring your gut, and I would have learned it's better for if you have any gastrointestinal issues, it's better to take in the tablet form. And there's such companies. I'm a huge favorite of LVLUP, which I introduced you to Ryan. He's from Australia. Their stack of peptides for gastro is incredible. But would you say that BPC, when you do injections, as well help the gastrointestinal issues?
Definitely. So usually for GI protocols, be it leaky gut syndrome, some gastric inflammation, some symptoms of diverticulitis or some autoimmune colitis, and even for gastric ulcers, reflux, and esophageal problems, I see very good effects from combination of BPC and KPV peptides, and also
Lorazepatide,
definitely.
which I learned from you. Which that company, LVLUP, has everything in one bottle. Lorazepatide, BPC, KVP, and some other stock you've seen.
Some obviously fatty acids that important.
Yeah.
In gastrointestinal and intestinal health. Yes. So answering your questions about oral and injectable peptides, yes, some peptides have very good oral availability, and getting directly into GI tract obviously provide good effect on the targets in GI tract, improve tightness of intestinal cells junctions, by doing this reducing leaky gut syndrome, helping to reduce damages and erosions on the mucus of gastric and esophageal mucosal lining and epithelium. But again, when you inject them, they also get there, because it's systemic effect. And usually I combine both for this condition, both injectable and oral peptides.
Beautiful. So what's the most surprising result you've had with peptide-based interventions?
A few cases that immediately come to my mind as one young athlete who had specializing in rowing, had injury of a couple of spinal discs were damaged, and had such severe pain that not only he couldn't train, but he couldn't do some routine personal hygiene things. And 4 to 6 weeks of combination of mitochondrial peptides stimulating growth hormone helped him so much that he's the 6 weeks he's back in training and even able to squat with weights. This is
that's incredible in such a short time.
Such a short time. I was very happy and very amazed by this immediate effect. And a case of a person who is about 60 years old, was diagnosed having stage 2-3 chronic kidney disease. His creatinine and creatinine was double the normal, and GFR was about 40. And after 6 weeks of treating special peptides targeting kidney, mitochondria, and some GLP-1, his results came back to normal. And his nephrologist was very surprised, and I told him, whatever you do, keep doing that.
Keep doing that. That's beautiful. And what's the worst that you've seen cases when biohackers come running to you, and you told me a story where they actually overdosing and they're killing their body? Not killing, but you know what I mean? They have some issues that their kidneys are like in liver.
Kidney and liver and prostate
and how much would they, how much would they overdose? Like, give us an example.
So for example, case when people didn't have proper medical workup before starting treatment, and they were giving peptides for muscle growth, but they had a PSA over 6 when they actually started, and it was overlooked. And after 2 months of treating with growth hormone-related peptides, it doubled and got higher. Some other people were using KISS peptide, triggered significant suppression of the testosterone level instead of proper stimulation of testicular tissue, these things. And definitely I've seen side effects of Ozempic and Mounjaro or related
Overusing
peptides
the
when
dosages,
people were overusing them and not only had visible Ozempic faces, Ozempic butts, but also developed pancreatic issues and kidney problems because they couldn't compensate chronic dehydration. And I've seen people using certain peptides for weight loss too fast. It's an overwhelming effect on kidney because all these lipolysis products, they had to be excreted by kidney, and kidney were not able to deal with it. It developed some degree of kidney failure.
Interesting.
And also side effect of peptides. I've seen person who is very active athlete and was doing some growth hormone related peptides and doing a lot of heavy training, and actually he got an emergency with rhabdomyolysis.
What's that?
It's destruction of muscle fibers, and if protein overwhelms kidney and kind of blocks kidney function with products of degradation of the muscle proteins.
So you got to be very careful. What's the most surprising or dramatic transformation you've seen from peptides, like someone going from 50 to 35?
It's interesting combination of some GLP peptides, mitochondrial, and other peptides. Women, some group of women between aging from 54 to 56 started having periods again. That was amazing.
That's interesting. Is there, of course, there's different peptides and hormonal things you need to do for women before she goes into premenopause. What would you recommend for women after 40 to start implementing and look for it?
Definitely first good labs, because every menopause is different, and depending on the body composition, weight, diet, and so many factors, different hormonal process, insulin resistance, glucose levels, and stress levels, it's all contributes. So that's why the population of women, premenopausal women, is so different. But a very good thing would be to focus on peptides that help them to calm down, in simple words, but that switch them from adrenergic to cholinergic mode of functioning. It's very important. It reduces the level of cortisol. Cortisol spikes that already can offset the age of starting menopause. It's very important. And then proper weight management, definitely. So you need to check insulin levels, IGF levels, again, other hormone levels, and regulating weight and weight-related issues can definitely prolong the time before having menopause.
Interesting. And of course, what I've learned, checking your hormones, even after 40, every 3 to 6 months, making sure you catch your levels early to implement. And some women, they just wait till menopause starts, and they don't, at that moment, they're like, what to do? I don't know. So it's very important to
definitely
catch it early.
Ideally, it would be great even before premenopausal age to follow your hormones and see which interventions affect them, how training and lifestyle affects hormones, and make your own correlations and see it with healthcare professionals.
Yeah. If someone started peptide today, how fast would they actually feel results?
Well, some people, and my experience, for some peptides, I feel immediate result. For example, after injecting MOD-C and training, I see immediate, not only me, but most of my patients see immediate results in the gym, high exercise, aerobic resistance, high exercise tolerance, even increase in muscle strength. After some peptides, people see immediate increase in pumping and the immediate results. And some peptides that have special use, like PT-141, people inject them for, like, instead of Viagra and
sexual enhancement.
For sexual
and that one is
enhancement.
also, I like the oxytocin too.
Oxytocin as well. Yes.
You can do oxytocin with PT-41, which people get, but make sure it's very careful on the dosages. Like
Absolutely.
especially oxytocin. I've seen even some of my friends overdosed like crazy, and then they went into labor. One guy ended up being in emergency, thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna get my sexual hot date's gonna go," and then they go crazy.
He got a condition called priapism. At PT-141, I see people grossly overdosing this peptide and get an ER with priapism. Priapism, for people to explain it, it's erection lasts many hours and is not relieved by any intercourse, and it can cause serious damage to blood vessels in the genitals. And if it happens to people, they need to go to emergency room to deal with it immediately. And contraindication is to combine actually PT-141 with PDE5 inhibitors like Viagra, Cialis is a similar medication because it can increase the risk of these side effects. But you asked me before what side effects I've seen from peptide. I've seen these side effects.
Yeah. Which peptides is best kept secret in anti-aging that almost nobody is talking about?
Humanin is amazing small mitochondrial peptide that helps mitochondrial health, but extremely important effect is stopping cells from moving down the apoptotic pathway. Apoptosis is a programmed cell death. They stop dividing, they stay around for a while, they're not dividing, they get senescent and express senescent phenotype and produce certain endotoxins that are not good for other cells. But if they're in certain stage when it can be reversed, humanin can help that. And it's extremely important. It's also very good for central nervous system, for immune system. And we checked it in personalized assays. It was a peptide that triggered and improved expression of more than 100 genes, was a champion compared to many other peptides. And another one would be thymolin. It's thymus-related peptide that it's not doesn't provide a rough immunostimulating effect, but mild immunoregulating effect. Also very good for immune system, for kidney, for neurodegenerative conditions, reduces severity of multiple sclerosis, our experience. And another peptide is SS31. It's amazing peptide. For me, amazing quality is it reduces lipid peroxidation. So it's very dangerous for cell process, and that very few molecules can affect this process. SS31 does this. By doing this, helps kidney, helps central nervous system, and some other systems. It's amazing peptide as well. Just to say it's they are not most common names among peptide users, so I wanted to mention them.
Yeah, and you also would mention when you start a peptide protocol, make sure you start one by one. Don't start implementing every way right away because you don't know where the side effects come from. So a lot of people, what I see, they buy 5-6 different peptides and they start shooting it. And then the problem starts occurring. They're like, which one? I don't know. And they stop everything. So I'm glad that you actually told me that, listen, start with one. How many days would you give for a peptide to see if you have any issues so you can introduce the second one on top?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing this up. So definitely it's important to get familiar with every peptide and to find out your subjective response to each peptide so you know what happens. And I start, for me, golden standard is to start low amounts of peptide. Even people I recommend to do skin test, inject very small amount like a few micrograms in the skin and see if while peptides usually have very low immunogenicity, but still some people have big red skin and itching
and swelling
and even dense red
like bumps. I've seen it in myself, and I've seen also for 2-3 days my body aching was so horrible. And I actually, when I met you, I was like, is that normal for me to continue? Because when I asked other practitioners, they're like, well, yeah, continue, try, look for more different, it'll go away in a couple of days. And you're like, no, you stop immediately. And now I tell even my friends and some other clients, I say, if you have any reactions, stop immediately.
Yes, we have to be on safe side because some peptides can trigger antibody developing toward them, like even ipamorelin or sermorelin. Growth hormone related peptides can
Stimulate
rapidly stimulate production of antibodies against them. And some peptides, some people had very severe reactions to sermorelin. It's hard to say, is it due to a over strong histamine reaction, is it some kind of anaphylactic reaction, but they had scary reactions. They went to emergency rooms. Some people tolerate it very well.
Interesting, because I've had a couple of times experience on myself buying the research peptides on GHK1 copper, and that three actually different companies gave me massive reactions like itching. I couldn't continue. And then when I tried the pharmaceutical grade from Prime, I had no problem. I thought, first of all, I shouldn't be doing copper, maybe GHK, but then I switched to one that it was from, and it was no problem. And also when I did MOTSI, one shot, the next day, my liver, I've never had such a liver pain in my life. I couldn't really walk. So yeah, you got to be very careful. I'm glad that you're saying test yourself first on the skin, see if there's any reactions. So if I wanted to boost energy and brain focus, which peptide would you recommend?
So a lot of energy comes from brain as well. State of your brain and central nervous system activity is a boost for your overall energy, along with other things like stimulating ATP production, mitochondrial efficiency, metabolic efficiency, and flexibility. So for brain peptides, there are peptides like Cmax and C-Lung. And Cmax is adrenocorticotropic hormone brain version. And inside the brain, it not only reduces neuroinflammaging, but it also kind of stimulating for the brain. So I see it compared to C-Lung. C-Lung is more relaxing, and it increases number of synaptic connections between cells and makes you feel cool and focused. And Cmax gives more of brain energy. It's very interesting, these peptides for brain function. But overall, for overall energy, mitochondrial peptide like MOTS-C also gives you not only physical energy, but also subjectively experiences increase of cognitive ability and more focusing. And no wonder central neurons have a lot of mitochondria that need to produce more energy. So these peptides are good to trigger just what comes to mind first to help with energy, central nervous system, and focus and energy.
And you often stack peptides with exosomes. Why does that combo work so well?
I wouldn't say all the time, but for many special indications, exosomes are a very valuable tool in the longevity and regeneration. And they are very synergistic with peptides, because exosomes basically are extracellular vehicles that contain peptides. They mostly contain peptides, and the growth factors that they carry, they are also peptides. Some of them also carry some nucleic acids. But some peptides are very synergistic with exosomes, because if you use certain exosomes for certain indication like musculoskeletal regeneration, fixing joints, ligaments, tendons, it's good to combine with other peptides that help to do that and that increase microcirculation as well. For example, there are certain peptides that increase microcirculation, and it can contribute to better effect of exosomes. Some peptides can target collagen and elastin production, and again, it's very synergistic with exosomes used for musculoskeletal injury. But for other indications like chronic kidney conditions or central nervous system, improvement of cognitive function, or neurodegenerative diseases, you can use exosomes intranasally, and you can combine it with peptides that increase number of synaptic connections or reducing neuroinflammaging. So they help each other. Peptide can improve microenvironment where exosomes eventually get, and improve their targeting and local effect.
I've been also doing exosomes on my mom, and she's been doing peptides in the past 4-6 months, and we just did her third upload of exosomes yesterday. And the same nurse who's been implementing the exosomes, she noticed her veins got so much better. Before we couldn't find veins, it was smaller, we had to poke in different veins. But like yesterday, it was like her veins were even fuller and literally was easy just from doing like, these stacks. If you can do only 3 biohacks for the rest of your life, which would you do?
Plasmapheresis, definitely. I love this procedure. In my opinion, it's ultimate detoxifying procedure. Second, I would bank as many cell lines from my body as possible, because with how we see the biotech and longevity science develop now, we have a lot of potential to reprogram our cells. And the younger we are when we harvest our cells, the better material we have for our future cell medicine interventions. And third, think positively.
That's always good. What's the cheapest biohack that gives the craziest results?
Glutathione.
Wow, glutathione.
Glutathione is tripeptide and has amazing antioxidant potential. And again, I'm again saying it's safe for everyone, but there are some certain contraindications. But for majority of people, it's pretty safe and it's easily available. And
well, it's a master key, antioxidant key in the body.
Yes.
So it's really important. What biohacks do billionaires do that normal people do not even know exist?
Customized gene therapies, customized reprogramming of the stem cells, and the use of stimulated immune system cells like CAR NK cells, CAR T cells, targeted against certain appropriate for each person targets.
If you wanted to add 10 years to your life, what steps would you take?
Once again, all healthy lifestyle interventions, thinking positively and breaking the hypnosis from the society that people average lifespan is like, say, 80 or 90 years, and just hypnotizing yourself otherwise, thinking positive that you can do it.
You can do it. Do you think in 10 years everyone will be on peptides the way everyone takes vitamins now?
I think peptides would be much more available and much more customized, and people will have better access, better knowledge, and definitely much more people will benefit from peptides, even from pharmaceutical industry.
What do you see coming next in peptide innovation or exosomes biotech for anti-aging?
Now there is a new class of peptides called micropeptides or micropeptides get studied, and they're responsible for communication between RNA and DNA inside the cells. I see big potential there. I see customized exosomes that will be filled with special peptides and target special conditions, and cellular targets will be developed. And definitely there will be some reprogrammed cells, and the exosomes will be derived from them with special functions.
And finally, if listeners can take three key takeaways from this conversation, what do you want them to remember?
First, please consider peptides as much drugs as anything else, and it's pharmaceutical. It's very active substance. So seek help of experienced health professional dealing with peptides or exosomes. Second, good medical practice. It's a good workup, history and physical health history, and as many labs as possible, and make sure that there are no underlying conditions that can be aggravated by certain, not only peptides, but any biohacking interventions. And third, probably study, because it's extremely important to be very educated consumer or customer and patient in the field of longevity and this experimental medicine.
Well, this conversation is literally been opening my eyes, my mind into so much what we can learn. And I'm sure listeners can learn more, even more, where people can find you and if they want to get a consultation.
My website is infinityepigenetics.com, and people welcome to contact me there. infinityepigenetics.com.
And I know also, just to touch base, you work with clinics in Mexico. which also you guys do a longevity like plasma exchange and stem cells there. So if anybody interested, please reach out to Alexander. It's such a knowledge, such an honor to have you here and have this incredible conversation, finally to know what peptides are and what should we do, how we can implement in anti-aging, because everything is possible. We can do it.
We can do it.
We can do it.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Pleasure and honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Grinberg, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your passion for longevity, and the insights you've gained through years of clinical experiences in the peptide medicine and regenerative health. To everyone listening, I hope this episode opened up your eyes to the powerful world of peptides, the importance of testing and personalization, and how these tools can truly change the way we age, heal, and perform. If you want to learn more about Dr. Grinberg's work, access personalized protocols, or explore peptide-based optimization, you'll find all the links in the description below. As always, thank you for tuning in. Stay curious, stay vibrant, and remember, wellness is life.